radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio for the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? Today's Thursday, November 21st, 2019. 325 days into the new year, just 40 days left. Wow. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? Yeah. We all know what's happening tonight, because this is night 4 of our Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black. 4 straight nights of your calls and questions with some of the best and brightest minds of our community. Monday night, Billy Carson. Tuesday night, we had Travis Walton. Last night, Whitley Strieber. And tonight, our guest is Richard Dolan. All right, let's do this. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Follow Richard Dolan at Rich Dolan right there on Twitter. Tonight is night 4 of our Open Lines Week right here on Fade to Black. 4 straight nights of your calls and questions with some of the best and brightest minds of our community. Tonight, it is Richard Dolan. Richard is one of the world's leading researchers and writers on the subject of UFOs and believes that they constitute the greatest mystery of our time. Richard completed his graduate work at the University of Rochester, where he studied U.S. Cold War strategy, European history, and international diplomacy. He also studied at Alfred University and Oxford University. He's the author of UFOs and the National Security State. He co-authored with Bryce Zabel, AD After Disclosure, and his latest book is UFOs in the 21st Century Mind. He also hosts his weekly radio show, The Richard Dolan Show, right here on KGRA. Frequent guest with me over on Coast to Coast AM. He's currently featured on several television series and documentaries, including Ancient Aliens, Hangar 1, The UFO Files, and Close Encounters. In addition to his research, his company, Richard Dolan Press, publishes innovative books by authors from around the world. Tonight is our final installment of Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black, and Richard is here to take your calls and answer your questions during this very important period of UFO history. His website is richarddolanpress.com. The links to everything Richard are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'd like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Richard Dolan. Richard.
Jimmy.
Don't mess with me.
Nice to be here.
Don't pause like that.
I want to keep you waiting just for a split second longer.
What kind of dramatic pause was that, man?
I'm working on we call it the DP in the biz. It's the dramatic pause.
Yeah. Well played.
I'm working to give longer DPs as I do new interviews with other people. It's a new thing.
Last song you listened to today?
I think I can safely say I didn't listen to any song today. Not that I recall. However, yesterday I was listening to some really great swing music of the 30s. I can't remember the specific titles. I had a whole list of them. I'm a really big fan of a lot of that period. Definitely something by Count Basie was in the mix, and Duke Ellington.
Whoa, hello. You know what?
Yeah, it's like really, honestly, you want to get into a good groove, listen to some upbeat swing from the 30s. There's a lot of great stuff available now, and it's just wonderful.
Last week, I did this back-to-back, by the way. It was over the weekend. I watched 2 documentaries, one on Thelonious Monk, and another one on Charlie Parker. And
Wow, 2 of my faves,
yeah.
especially Bird, Charlie Parker.
Oh, man. You know, and the 2 of them,
they were both off the charts, musical genius.
Genius. You know what? Genius isn't strong enough, right? they're beyond genius, right? And 2 of the most troubled, messed up dudes too, as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, sadly,
particularly.
Parker died famously at the age of 35, which was the age that Mozart died, and Parker, in American jazz, was kind of, you could say he was like America's Mozart in a lot of ways. Like he was this natural, like Mozart, this natural genius who, as he often said, heard a different sound. You know, when the big band world was going full guns, Charlie Parker heard something different. And there's a famous story where before he was famous, he's jamming, and his notes were so difficult. They were really difficult for the other band members to play with, that the drummer lost time, and in anger, this is in a session, threw his cymbal across the studio. And Parker just packed up his saxophone and walked out quietly. He had this trouble his whole career. He just was always a misfit.
He was
until he became
complete
the famous
misfit
guy that everyone copied.
That's right. And then when he was recording with Miles, and I think it was like Kind of Blue, right?
Yeah.
He's recording with Miles.
No. He was gone by then.
No, he was gone by then.
He had a young Miles Davis trained. A lot of Miles's earliest recordings were with Charlie Parker in the late 40s even.
Yeah.
But then Miles Davis went off to do his own thing. Kind of Blue, Parker was gone.
Yeah, it wasn't Kind of Blue. It wasn't Sketches of Spain. But anyway, the point is,
right.
He's recording. He finishes with Miles, and he starts writing the stuff for his solo record. And he started recording it 2 weeks later. He was writing like mad. But he came out with this new sound, which was harmonically disconnected, notes that he was playing were right,
exactly.
Weirdness, and it freaked people out. And he was like, "Hey, man, I hear it in my head. This is music, And
you're talking about Miles Davis?
No, Charlie Parker.
Parker. Well, see, both of them had created their own little revolutions in jazz. And Parker, before Miles was really playing, Charlie Parker was recreating jazz. And it's true, Parker heard this new sound in his head. Absolutely. Particularly when World War II ended, Parker really blossomed, and actually even before that. And Miles Davis came along a few years later in the late 40s and learned so much from Charlie Parker, and then went off and he created his own revolution in jazz.
See, this is why
and then came Coltrane and created another one, and they just kept going.
This is why you are who you are. This is blowing my mind.
I don't know what that means, but thank you.
That we're even having this conversation. And okay, we've got to move on.
I love that period of jazz. That's the truth. Like I love it so much, and I'm glad you do too.
Well, you know what? Bitches Brew, which to me was a real game changer. But if you back up and you go to Sketches of Spain, there isn't an album that makes me dream or imagine like Sketches of Spain does.
It's a beautiful record. My favorite is always going to be Kind of Blue.
Yeah, Kind of Blue is incredible.
He has Bill Evans there.
Yep.
Cannonball Adderley, who, by the way, was very much a Charlie Parker sound-alike, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He really was, though. And, of course, a young Coltrane. No, that was an amazing, amazing jazz quintet.
It was.
And just Incredible music. By the way, on YouTube, there's an amazing video of Miles and Coltrane and that whole band after Evans left playing Kind of Blue or So What, which was their main song there.
Right.
On television, on TV. And it's so cool to watch.
Is that
because, like,
the
you
one?
see them playing and they're smoking cigarettes.
They're
in the back
smoking
after
cigarettes and
after
they're
his solo's done.
Right.
And then,
Somebody in that shot, I can't remember who it is backstage leaning against the wall, and they're playing out front, right? And the camera pans back, and he's got a tumbler of scotch and a cigarette with his head rocked back and listening. And I just
amazing, right?
Man,
you just want to go back there,
right?
And like be with these guys.
Oh man,
serious.
All right,
I would love to do that.
Now, I'm going to do a little tribute to what Congress was going through today, and I'm going to start off like this. I want to thank you for your years of service.
Oh my God, this is not going to go well.
And your contribution, right? Exactly, and your contribution to our community.
I never heard anything.
But I have this question, and which is this. I'm going to start off here. Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar. What's your take?
Well, it's taken many years for me to formulate my opinion on Bob Lazar. When I first started researching UFOs, I honestly had no idea what I thought about his story because it's such a controversial lightning rod for different opinions and so on. But I believe Bob Lazar's story, and I've believed it for a long time. I think that there may be things that he's not getting exactly accurate in retelling it. He himself has kind of implied this at one time or another, but no, I think fundamentally he's truthful. And I think, first of all, that George Knapp, I think, proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Lazar did, in fact, work at Los Alamos National Labs. He's got that, absolutely. Lazar clearly knew Edward Teller. If you listen to Edward Teller's no comment statement about Lazar, I think that absolutely is a telling point that he knew Lazar. And I think that here's Lazar who knew exactly where and when to go for him and John Lear and their crew to see where the UFOs were. No, I think he knew exactly. And people who knew Lazar back then, I just myself did an interview with James Goodall, who himself is a legend in the aviation field, but is a John Lear, met Lazar back in 88, 89, and has his own story about Lazar to tell. I'm friends with Ron Regehr, who knew Lazar back in the pre-1989, 88 era. All these people who knew Lazar, they all stand up for him. So, yes, I believe his story, and I think that he did go to S4. I think there is a place called S4. I think he did see a variety of these flying saucers and that he worked on one. So, yes, I believe that.
What about the other elements? Now, I concur, by the way, with what you just said. And I have, over the years, not to spend a lot of time on my opinion, but watching all of the original statements and interviews with Bob and trying to get him to trip up, right, so I could just clear my mind of this. I found no evidence of that. So
no, absolutely.
Right.
All of his statements are, as far as I could tell as well, completely consistent.
And then I have this MIT Caltech conundrum. And that's the part where, do you think that was something that Bob just, it came out of his mouth in the excitement of the hoopla that was going down in 1990 and he slipped up?
I used to think that. But here's the funny thing. Because back in the 80s, look, it was very easy for people to lie about their education. That's the fact. And we like to forget this. It's very difficult now to lie about your education. It's almost impossible, I would say. But in the 80s, people did it, and I knew people who did it. and one of them got caught, and it was a very embarrassing situation. But like, it happened because people need to survive. They want to get jobs and all of that. And back then it was done. And I always was inclined to interpret Lazar's MIT and Caltech statements in that manner. However, I mentioned Jim Goodall. And for people who do not know Jim Goodall, he, aside from having many, many years in the U.S. military, is probably one of the top aviation experts in the world, certainly in the history of aviation. This is a guy who sat inside the Blackbird SR-71. He saw it back in 1964, as a matter of fact. Took the first known photograph of the stealth fighter back in the 80s when no one knew about it. Like, this is a guy who's been there, and he knows all about Area 51. He's investigated it. And Goodall said to me that I don't know if it was in 88 or early 89, when Lear and Lazar were very tight, that he went alone with Lazar to Lazar's home or his apartment or whatever, and saw on the wall, and I am deadly serious here, said that he saw Lazar's MIT diploma on the wall.
No.
And I said, what? No. Right.
Right.
I was like, what? He said, and Goodall, to his credit, and Jim Goodall, I just have to say, is an absolute beast. Like, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you cannot help but love when you hear him. Seriously. Like, you want him in your family. You want him as, and he's just an amazing human being, incredibly knowledgeable. But yeah, he said this, that he believed, like he said, I'm pretty certain, like I think he's asked himself this a lot, and he was pretty sure it was an MIT diploma, and Lazar's apartment was broken into. This is Jim Goodall telling me, and all that stuff was stolen after that. And he believes Lazar's background was scrubbed. Now this, and I said, who else knows this? And he said, I don't know, Gene Huff, who of course was Lazar's real estate friend back in those days in the Vegas area. And I don't know who else knows. Maybe George Knapp would know, actually. This is worth asking him, actually, in fact. But yeah, I got this statement just a week or two ago from James Goodall.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So,
Goodall, back in like I'm going to go with 1995. That seems like it's the right year. I got his email and I wrote him, and we had a very cool, like maybe month or two email back and forth, back when email was like a rare thing. And he was very cool, man. He's very cool to me. Very nice.
This is a man who investigated Area 51 before anyone knew who Bob Lazar was.
That's right.
So we're talking early 1980s. Jim Goodall was talking to, he had one, I think, a sergeant who was 11 years at Groom Lake, I believe. And Goodall said, do you believe in UFOs? And the guy's answer was, yes, absolutely, they exist. And then he said, we have things in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas envious. And he got another person from Area 51 or that area who said virtually the same thing. And each time Goodall would say, can you expand on that? And they would always say no. But he was digging. And so these are Lazar-like stories. These are stories that corroborate Lazar in various ways. And by the way, George Knapp, we should point out, has always said that he's interviewed roughly 24, 25, maybe 30 individuals other than Lazar who have corroborated significant portions of Bob Lazar's account. So I think there's too much smoke to say that there's no fire here. I believe that Bob Lazar, yes, is telling the truth. And by the way, when I wrote my second volume of UFOs in the National Security State, and yes, Jimmy, there will be a third volume.
I'm waiting.
I want to ask, but when I wrote volume 2, I had Lazar in there for about 10 or 11 pages, and I will never forget.
You scrubbed him.
Well, no, I went very deeply into that. And there were a lot of people who were really polarized by how I treated that, because I ultimately was supportive of his case. But there were people not just Stanton Friedman, but others who said he's a fraud, he's a faker. And then equally as many people who were very strongly supportive. So
yeah,
I'm glad that he's getting the attention he's getting now. I think he deserves it.
Now, the other part of it, though, scrubbing school records is one thing at two major universities. But how do you scrub your professors? How do you scrub your friends, your classmates? How do they get scrubbed?
The impression I always had, honestly, is that he audited these courses rather than took them for credit. And I think the Caltech is totally possible. MIT, the story that I had heard, and I wish I could remember how to confirm this or not, was that he had a buddy of his who went to MIT and that Lazar just audited some courses. So I don't know what the truth is, and then here's Goodall saying he saw the diploma.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense.
Was it at MIT? And he's not 100% sure, so we're back to square one. I mean, I don't really know what to think on that. But to me, that's less critical than the information he provides about S4.
Oh, that's right.
I
that's
think
right.
Has received corroboration.
Yeah, my opinion is very cut and dried here. Look, I'm sure that that he worked, he's got the Navy W-2, right? He's got the things that can back that stuff up. But it just if you didn't go to MIT, if you didn't go to Caltech, it's okay. Just come clean about it. Nobody cares. Obviously, after all of these years, that part of his education has been hanging out there. But I don't think it phases anybody, and it doesn't faze me. I would rather just have him go, look, man, I let my head get away from myself, and I didn't go.
Yeah. I agree with you. Has he provided, because I don't really know the answer to this, names of professors he studied with?
Nope.
I actually can't recall.
I don't think there's one.
Not any?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I remember.
Like if I couldn't produce any of my diplomas or my degrees, I forgot what my college degrees are called. If I couldn't produce any of those, I would at least be able to say I took this class with this professor and so on. Like I can remember them to this day.
Right.
Most of them.
Right.
Many of them.
And professors remember their students. Not everyone, but you're going to find one that'll go, yeah, I remember that guy. He was a pain in the butt, or he was really smart, or he was a slacker. I remember him. He was a problem child. Or
other students, even.
That's the other thing. Other students.
Yeah.
So, that's just.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It is odd. It's odd.
Now, John Lear posted today, and I wanted to get your comments on this. John Lear posted over on Facebook, and I don't see this stuff often. I don't hang out on Facebook, but this popped up in my feed today. And he said he just finished Lazar's autobiography. Now, if anybody knows Bob, it's John. Right? So, right. And John said, I just finished the book today, and I only found 3 factual quotes in the entire 245 pages.
I've been hearing this. I haven't read it, so I'm not going to.
I haven't read it either. But
I've been hearing this from everywhere.
He's the last person I want to hear this from. I don't want to hear it from John.
I mean, honestly, this is what I would bet. Someone came up to Lazar with a big wad of cash and said, "Hey, let's do your biography for you."
Right.
And Lazar, like, you can already tell by his personality, he's like, sure, fine, whatever. Like, seriously, how much do we think Bob Lazar cares about this? Like, maybe he does, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just said, yeah, I'm going to tell you my story, you write it, and fine, I don't have to do anything. Like, I could easily see that, and sure, what's my paycheck going to be? Like, that kind of a thing. And so, obviously, he had a ghostwriter who did clearly a slipshod job, like, by all accounts. That's pretty obvious.
Well, an autobiography becomes part of the historical record. Is it going to be part of
not everyone's meticulous in this world,
right?
I mean, Lazar is meticulous about certain things. Obviously, if you listen to the man talk, he's clearly a very highly analytical, exact person with certain things. But I don't know the story. Clearly, he had a ghostwriter who did a very, very slipshod job. That's obvious.
Now, when we're dealing with physicists, professional, real, educated, or the authentic, out of their mind physicists, they are inside of math and numbers and symbols unlike anybody else on this planet. And that's what they do. That's all they're doing is equations, walls of them for months at a time. Have you ever seen Bob do physics? Have you ever seen Bob? Could he, that's the other part of this that I'm just wondering about. Has anybody ever seen him do equations?
Well, look, you're asking the wrong. I don't know Bob personally. I met him. We chatted briefly. I know people around him. I wouldn't pretend that I'm an expert in his life, so I can't misrepresent that. The impression that Bob Lazar always gave me is that he's a very, very smart man who has certain skills. I don't think anyone's saying that he's some genius theoretical physicist. I don't think he would claim that. He's a mechanical sort of a guy. That's really his true skill.
I agree.
Like he's actually really good at blowing things up, like literally blowing things up in the desert and building things and tweaking engines and that sort of thing. So that's a different kind of a skill. That's not like an Einstein type of a thing. That's not Enrico Fermi or John von Neumann. He's a different side of a.
He's not an Oppenheimer.
No, I don't, and I don't think he would probably say that. He's a guy who likes to build and tinker, and he certainly gives the impression of being very good at that. And that's something would S4 folks who are working on a flying saucer bring someone like him in. I don't know. They don't talk to me. They don't ask for my advice. But I can at least see that it could be a possibility that you'd bring someone in with a fresh approach. Sure.
Yeah.
And plus his Teller connection. That's the thing that got him in. It was Edward Teller. And this is, I don't think there's any reason to dispute this, that in, I think it was in 1982, Lazar made the cover of the local Los Alamos newspaper there for this jet engine he put on a car. And it was kind of a cool thing. And Teller was, in fact, at Los Alamos at that time.
With the newspaper.
And according to Lazar, they sat and talked, like he actually ran into him. And Teller does the typical, well, young man, I like the cut of your jib or whatever he said. And here's my phone number. Contact me if you are looking for a job. And 6 years go by and Lazar dug out the phone number and the rest is history. I don't think that's an outrageous thing. And I think it's very likely that Teller's connection is what got Lazar in.
Yeah. And so like I said, I don't know much about the education side of things, but I do believe he worked at Area 51. He brought us S4. He saw things, and what has been amplified from there, don't know. I wasn't there, but that part of it, the way that he has explained it, he hasn't made me raise questions. I felt that he was always as solid as can be. So I've got this thing that I fight with myself about it, man.
There's a claim current now that Lazar was at S4 but didn't do the work he said he did. There's all these variations now. And I don't know who to believe on this, and I don't know the strength of that claim, but I know that it is a claim that has made the rounds. Maybe it's true. Maybe he wasn't working on the sports model UFO flying saucer like he says, or maybe he was. This is the problem with our field, unfortunately. Things get so tangled with rumor and with claim and counterclaim, and eventually you lose the ability, possibly, of really knowing how to separate the truth, how to untangle the truth from all of it.
Well, let's take our break right here. When we come back, we're going to open up the phone lines. You ready?
Yes.
Let's do this. So. Our guest tonight, Richard Dolan. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. All right, I'm opening up the phone lines right now. 747-228 2051. If you don't get through, call back, call often. It's going to be a busy night on the phones. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Night 4 of our Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black. Tonight, Richard Dolan. 747-228-2051. It's very busy on the phones. If you don't get through, just call back. Call often. It's going to be a busy night on the phones. And, Richard, before we get started,
Yes.
Have you found that... I got to fix my chair. Have you found that no matter where we are at any given moment in ufology, where a day or two goes by and it feels a little stagnant, right? And all of a sudden, bam, there's something else. There is a big breaking story, it seems like, right around the corner, right? Are you ever surprised anymore?
Well, for the last 2 years, I've gotten used to it. Like I'll just say, for a number of years, it felt to me that we were either spinning our wheels or just engaging in Fantasyland with a lot of really, really absurd claims that were detracting from the value of this field.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easy to feel like we were just going in circles. But I will say in the last 2 years, whatever one thinks about a lot of the claims that have come out, it has certainly made the field very interesting. And also there's a lot of actionable information that has come out. So a lot of information that is worthy of future research. And I'm just going to say here, I was at the center of one of these controversies when I publicized the so-called Admiral Thomas Wilson document that was certainly written by Dr. Eric Davis back in 2002. And there's been a lot of work. People may not all be aware. Deep analyses have been done now on the Thomas Wilson document. And I mean, aside from, forget trying to prove if it's authentic. I mean, that's such a kindergarten level argument now. There's what we're finding is deep connections for future research in terms of individuals and organizations and so forth. So no, there's just so much new that is coming out, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And there's just so much more. So it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go for the next few years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's kick this off. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Bob in Alabama again. And Richard, this is N4HY. So anyway, thanks very much, Jimmy, for having this great week, and Richard for taking the call. Richard, I really want to commend you and Tracy and your whole team on your implementing the forum. I was going to ask about the Thomas Wilson document, but you've covered it a bit. The thing that I would ask you to comment on is you've had recent interviews with Chris Bledsoe, and we're seeing now on Facebook and with Grant Cameron and other people the kind of amazing pictures and photos of the people that are going to visit Chris and all of the interactions between Sinovan, DeLong, others with Chris Bledsoe. Do you believe he is currently the kind of most interesting experiencer in ufology?
Well, thanks for calling, and I know who you are, and I'm very glad to hear from you. You had a couple of interesting points there. I just want to mention relating to the Wilson document. There's an individual who wants to remain anonymous. I know who he is. He is absolutely brilliant and has written a 30-plus page analysis of the Thomas Wilson document that is absolutely brilliant. And I will be interviewing this gentleman in the very near future, so the world will hear him. He does have a blog site. We can link all that stuff later, but it's an absolutely deep, amazing analysis. Regarding Chris Bledsoe, yes, I did just chat with Chris. I have 1 hour of my interview with him that's available now. The second hour has been recorded, and there will be a third. All of those will be released. I will say, yeah, I believe that he's certainly the most famous experiencer of the last couple of decades, and I think deservedly so. Having spoken with him at some length now, I feel like I know Chris pretty well. And the thing about his story is that, his contact accounts are so utterly fantastic sounding. Like, if you're a skeptic on UFOs, you would think, well, this is impossible. The problem with that position, however, is that he has been visited by so many deep, serious researchers, not only who confirm the story of him and all of the other witnesses, but they themselves have had experiences on his property in North Carolina. This has almost become a cliche. From John Alexander to Grant Cameron to Chase Kletsky and many, many other people who've gone down there and had very, very bizarre experiences. So there's something real that's happening there. And I have a lot of respect for Chris Bledsoe. So, yeah, I think he's very important.
Thank you for the phone call, Bob. Yeah, go ahead.
He just seems super genuine, Richard, and I really appreciate all your work. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And
that was great.
Yeah, what were we just talking about before that phone call? There's always something in ufology, right? And,
yes, exactly.
And here we have Chris, who what has been going down on his property in North Carolina has been talked about. His name has not been out front. Now it is. And a lot of people can go, oh, I heard about, so it was him. Oh,
yeah,
I get it.
It's a weird thing. Like, his case is famous and unknown at the same time. It's an odd position to occupy, but it's really true. But yeah, I've just been chatting with him. We're still in touch. And I just have to say he is a stand-up guy. And he's challenged me, too. Like, I have a position on the UFO subject where I actually don't like all these crazy, mysterious things. Like, I want things to be very comprehensible and analytical and materialistic and measurable. Like, that's what I'm most comfortable with. And I won't make any bones about that. I want the phenomenon to be comprehensible within my mindset. And yet I've absolutely am forced to admit time and again that there are many, many cases that don't fit my preconceived notion of what I think UFOs should be. And so I've just had to come to accept that. And Chris Bledsoe's case is a very strong one in that regard. There's a lot of elements of what we would call consciousness that's important here. There's a lot of, he firmly believes, like, a personal interaction that he has had with these entities, whatever they are. And I don't think that he believes that they're necessarily extraterrestrial. In fact, I think he believes, at least in part, that they're some other sort of spiritual entity, however we want to define that. So there's a mysterious nature to this phenomenon that, I mean, on the one hand, I enjoy it very much because I like the fact that we don't understand everything. That's good for us. But on the other hand, there's a part of me that really wants to just grab this, package it, get the data, put it in a little box and be done. And I can't do that. And it's in large part because there's cases like that of Chris Bledsoe. So it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge.
Are you going love and light on me? Okay, let's go back to the...
No, I'm not going
okay,
light on. But I've actually never really been a straight up materialist, like a Victorian materialist of the 19th century. That would be silly for me to try. So I recognize that there are things in this world that our, I guess I could say, our conventional science can't really explain. I mean, it's just a fact in my view. And so that tells me that our science is missing something very important. And so we have to be alert to those anomalies. You know, there's a great book written over 50 years ago called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by a man named Thomas Kuhn, Kuhn. It's kind of famous in a way, kind of not famous. He coined the word paradigm.
Right.
And Kuhn argued, he said, scientific progress doesn't just happen incrementally. Like, you know, one scientist working off someone else's research. And he says, no, that's wrong. What happens is people build up their facts, and on those facts they create what he called a paradigm. That is a view of things, a way to organize those facts. He said, but the problem with these paradigms is that new facts come in and they don't fit, and so they're considered to be anomalies. And he said the structure of a scientific revolution is that when you get too many anomalies, you've got to rethink the paradigm. And that's when a real genius comes along who comes up with a completely new scientific paradigm, and that's the structure of scientific revolutions. And so I believe that we're dealing with these types of anomalies today. These types of what we call psychic phenomena, or phenomena that are contingent upon states of consciousness. These are signs that there are anomalies. Now, I will say that a lot of people who make claims along these lines, we just can't accept everything at face value, because the fact is, A, there are liars. B, there are people who are self-deluded. And you and I have met both of them.
Yes.
They exist. And we're fools if we pretend that they don't exist. We're fools if we say, oh, yes, I believe everyone. Like, that's not smart. So we have to be critical, and we have to recognize that there are a lot of fakers out there, or people who make these claims, and we can't accept it. But you can't throw out the fact that there are truly unexplained phenomena. So I would just say approach it scientifically. I think that the culture that has accreted around what we call the New Age phenomenon has been an unfortunate development in our society, in the sense of focusing on feelings, focusing on your heart chakra and what you feel is right and all of that, and like your truth versus my truth. Like, that's all poison to the mind. That's a toxin.
And you know what's interesting?
But we approach it scientifically, and then we can win.
That's right, and that's why somebody like Jacques Vallée, who is like in the middle of both sides, right? He's right in the middle. Is somebody that needs to be listened to, because he gets it. So let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. It's Deb from Sacramento. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Hey, Richard, I wanted to let you know that whenever I feel like being really educated and I have got my thinking cap on, I always look for your podcast, because you're always great at educating people. You're clearly very intelligent, but you're not highbrow. You don't go over people's heads. And the thing that I appreciate the most, along with all your knowledge and research, is you have a great sense of humor, and you're entertaining as well. So thank you for that.
Smoke and mirrors, Dad.
Why aren't you just a sweet sack of sugar? Thank you, Stephanie.
What have you got for Richard tonight?
I appreciate that.
Now she's going to drop the bomb on you, though. See, she just softened you up.
Yeah, I also wanted to say, Tracy, your wife's a very lucky lady. You two are fantastic together.
She's sitting right here and giving a little Japanese girl clap. You know, like the little clap like this. She's doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, my question is, have the two of you had a chance to look at, and I hope I'm going to say this word right, the Coelacanth images and videos that have dropped on the web? Oh, you're kidding. And
Jimmy and I were just talking about this.
Yes. Okay, well, ask again.
Jimmy, you told me about this.
Yes.
Jimmy, do you want to introduce this to the world? Because I think you're better at this.
No. I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you run. I'm going to let you run with it.
I learned this from a man named Jimmy Church. He was telling me about this earlier today. And apparently in Germany, in a location that Jimmy doesn't know exactly where, somewhere in the nation of Germany, a flash drive was found, a USB stick that has over 8,000 images, video,
1,800
documents.
Yes.
No, I thought it was over 8. Okay, whatever, a lot.
Yes.
And they're quite interesting. Like on Jimmy's Facebook page, I'm looking at some of these images. Oh, here we go. Some of them are rather odd. They're mysterious. One some show like markings on the moon, and I don't know what these things are. I mean, there's an odd beam of light that you see here, and there's a spherical object in front of a planet. Maybe that's Earth. These are very odd pictures. Now, Jimmy said he saw some pictures that were supposedly as early as the early 20th century. I'm not seeing any on.
No, those
here.
haven't been published yet. But I'll send you some stuff tomorrow or after the show.
Well, it's just a new mystery. I mean, I wish I had something to say about it. I don't really have anything to say other than the pictures actually are rather interesting to look at, and I would like to know more. But of course,
great, to be continued then.
Well, you always have to ask. Obviously, these can be easily. I do think they could be created, and we really don't know the true origin of this. All I'm hearing from Jimmy is that they were found in Germany. We really would need to know how these things specifically were found before we're going to make any decisions. I would like to do that. I would like to know exactly how they found.
To me, my impression, I've seen what's posted so far, and to me it looks like there could be a mixture of credible and fake ones, just to confuse people more. That's kind of my impression.
Oh my God.
But like I said, to be
That'd be another
continued,
annoying thing. Like on a flash drive, then it would be like you'd have to think, right, that it would be planted to bury the truth amid a tissue of lies? Is that what it would be? Crazy.
Yeah, no.
I mean, maybe the case.
You know, and the other part about it for me is they don't have a consistent look and feel. Right? If somebody was hoaxing these and sitting at their computer, you would eventually go, okay, these feel like they're coming from the same, creator. Where here they're just all over the place, and they don't have a consistent.
A couple have color, and some are black and white. Most black and white, I guess.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's strange. Hey, Deb,
all the ones that you have on your page, these are all actually I didn't even realize, but they're all from space. Every one of them.
Yeah,
there's not any that.
And if you look at the last one, which is picture number 28, the one with it looks like trees or peace signs or pieces of wood coming out of the ground.
I'm looking at it right now. It's so funny.
That is a bizarre. It's just.
That's like the Blair Witch Project.
It is bizarre,
right?
Man.
Remember?
It is totally Blair Witch.
It's like the Blair Witch Project with these little. Like it's going to give me nightmares. Which, by the way, that movie did give me nightmares. I'm not kidding.
Thank you,
20
Deb.
years ago.
Enjoy the rest of your night and your weekend.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, you guys. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Deb. Bye.
Yeah. I thought Stephanie.
No, it was Deb, but that's okay.
All right.
The sources of these, and now I've gotten. We'll talk about this more tomorrow, but some of these are NASA images. And some of the video footage is NASA too as well. I don't know, Richard. I'm more than perplexed right now. But it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's never boring in the field of ufology. Just when you get comfortable, that's when you need to get ready because something else is about to happen. And that's my take. And I just find this fun. I don't know what getting to the bottom of this is going to produce in the end. I don't know. And it feels cicada-ish, too, as well. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Sure.
Who's calling?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. Who's this?
Hey, this is Sean from the Bay Area.
Hey, Sean. Say hi to Richard.
Hey, Richard, how you doing?
Hi, Sean. Nice to hear from you.
Great. So I got a question for you. With all this recent disclosure news we've been seeing in the media, the past year or so, it's been really flooding us. Where do you see it going from here? Do you see them slowly trickling out more news like this, or do you see it coming to some sort of head where we might get some sort of real disclosure?
I love this question. So, yes, please let me do my best with this one. It's my assessment. I mean, I think in the last 2 years, since this field has really turned inside out, since the New York Times Politico and other major media have been covering UFOs in a serious, at least a semi-serious way, without the jokes, without the snark. It's been a new ballgame, and 90+% of that, I think, can be laid at the doorstep of To the Stars Academy, TTSA. I think they are clearly the ones driving nearly all of this. They are the ones driving even most of the statements by the United States Navy, all of the major media publicity, the New York Times pieces. They gave us publicity to the Tic Tac incident, to the USS Roosevelt incident off the eastern U.S. coast. They were the ones pushing the Navy's admission that they still investigate UAP, all of that. So the question really comes down to, what is TTSA? So if they're a government operation, which some people claim, then you would think this is a planned disclosure by the government. But what if they're not? My opinion is that they're not a government operation. And I'm going to say this very strongly. I think that they are a private organization with some ex-Intel people in it. That's right. But they're a private group that is a faction. Let's call them a disclosure faction that is trying to navigate a very careful path without breaking security clearances, which they've mostly all got. So they've got to be very careful with how they do this, and they get their allies and they've got their enemies within the Pentagon and the intelligence community. And so what I think, and they're getting a lot of frustration, by the way. Like they're, in my opinion, slowing down. There's a couple of interesting articles released by Chris Mellon of TTSA recently, one on their blog site and one that was published on thehill.com. I would encourage people to read this. These are interesting articles. And the one on the Hill recently, he just talked about how TTSA is having a heck of a difficult time getting anyone in Congress to listen to them, getting anyone in the Trump administration to listen to them. It's almost like they're spinning their wheels, going nowhere really fast. That's the impression you get from that article. And I think it's entirely possible that they don't succeed with what they're setting out to do, which is to promote some level of disclosure. They've talked about having access to a number of UFO videos that they know about. They've only gotten 3 of them declassified. Both of those were almost 2 years ago. I don't see them making a whole lot of headway there. So it looks to me that they're in danger of being stonewalled themselves. And the other thing that I guess I would say is, aside from TTSA, we're in a very interesting position in our society vis-a-vis UFO secrecy. On the one hand, we're in an era where it is true, like more information seems to be available to us, where more information is coming out and we're able to discuss these things. Some of that information is bogus, and some of it is self-serving propaganda for people to make money, and some of it is disinformation, but some of it's real. So there's that. But on the other hand, we are now living in a globe where every government, from China to the United States and everyone in between, is seeking to control their citizenry more and more and more through surveillance, through propaganda, through control over the media, all of that. And through what I would say is an intentional dumbing down of the population too. I'll just throw that in there. So we're losing our ability to think critically. We're becoming worse researchers in many cases, not better. And I think it's entirely possible. Like I often have had the assumption that disclosure is an inevitability because we're trading more and more information and the wall's going to break. But it's entirely possible that the propaganda system, the control system, closes around us so completely and pushing alternative news to the fringe so completely that it is possible that the so-called powers that be maintain control over this narrative for a long, long time, much longer than we would like. And in which case the efforts of TTSA, which I do not see as a government op, I'm going to say this again, would have come to failure. And that's a distinct possibility, in my view.
Thank you for the call, Sean.
Hey, you're welcome.
I like this way the man thinks. All right, Richard, Jimmy, go back to Tepe.
Go back to Tepe. Thank you so much, Sean. And the thing about that, the slowdown, and what Chris Mellon was talking about, and the frustration that is there. Do you think, and I've got 15 seconds, do you think it's because it was too much, too fast, and maybe not controlled probably a little bit better the way that TTSA did it, and now we won't be seeing any more cooperation with the Pentagon?
I don't think it has anything to do with how well or how poorly TTSA rolled out their information. I think that they're just enemies in the Pentagon, and they just come hell or high water, they're not going to cooperate. TTSA made their Mylar balloon gaffe and a couple of other things they shouldn't have done, but that has nothing to do with why the Pentagon wouldn't cooperate with them. It had everything to do with the fact that they are opening up a subject that many factions in the Pentagon still do not want open. I think that's what we're talking about here.
There you go. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Bleepin' Dolan. Yeah, I got bleeping in. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. More of your phone calls are next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Bleepin' Dolan. Everybody take a drink. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black Questions. Also, you can follow Richard at Rich Dolan right there on Twitter. And Richard, before we get back to the calls, everybody that's on hold, stay right there. We'll get to everybody. Is there a conference that you don't go to where a Fadernaut comes up and says, yo, man, wearing the gear and the respect that you have from this audience, that's got to make you feel pretty good.
I have to say, you have a really good crew. You've got really wonderful people who follow you. And yes, I run into Fadernauts all the time. And I feel like a special citizen of the Fadernaut universe. I feel like I run into people with Fadernaut t-shirts all the time, Fade to Black t-shirts. And yeah, it's nice, I must say. And the quality of the people who follow you is always really high. Well, I enjoy talking with them.
Yeah, and I think that they recognize that when you're on this program, that you're not phoning it in, right? And that's important. The other thing is we have exhausted the normal questions between host and interviewer like 6 years ago.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, we've way moved on past that. So they know that it's going to be different every time that you're on, and we're just going to sit and talk.
What I like about these shows, honestly, I've said this to you before, but you really genuinely have a way of getting me to express myself in a way that I don't do anywhere else. Like, I don't do this. I'm more relaxed, maybe too relaxed sometimes, but I am more relaxed with you than I am probably with any other host.
And we all appreciate that.
We have good conversations.
Absolutely.
And you let me unleash on you sometimes. Like, that's very nice of you, honestly. I give you hell sometimes, like either in private phone calls or on the air. It's happened.
It happened today. It happened today, earlier today.
It always does.
Yes,
I can't help myself.
But this is the other thing, and you and I. This is funny. Let's just put this out there. We actually talked about this earlier today, and
yes,
that
among other little juicy tidbits, which will not be named.
Will not be. We're not going to go there, but that I feel that I can push. You can push, but it's only because we're chasing the truth and we're trying to figure this out together.
That's absolutely the case. Like, I think we both recognize in the other person that we are genuine. We have certain similar opinions, a lot of similar opinions, and we have other opinions that are different. But I've always felt that you are in this for real, and I think you know that I'm in this for real. So, and I think on that basis we can listen to each other.
And it'll never change.
I listen to you, and I think you listen to me.
It'll never change. It'll never change. With that, we've got so many people on hold. Let's go right back to it. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hello, how's it going? How are you, Jimmy?
It's going good. Who's this?
This is Matt from Winnipeg, Manitoba. How are you?
I say hi to Richard.
Oh, Richard, hello. You're like one of my biggest fans, buddy. I'm telling you.
Hey, Matt, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. I'm driven up by your idea of creating a technology where everybody can, have a free energy technology, but still, be able to print it on 3D printers.
Yeah.
And just absolutely taken away by that. And the fact is, I'm so driven by that. Most of my university studies are actually, working on ways of making that possible against the establishment. And I owe it to you.
I love that. I love hearing that because honestly, it might be one of the only chances, truly one of the only chances that ordinary people have to retain any measure of independence in this world. Like, is the ability, and the idea just, I've been working this idea over and over for years now, but it just combines understanding of advanced next generation 3D printing, where you can work. I mean, actually, it's already here where you can work with mixed materials and sometimes in a very sophisticated way, even printing things like integrated circuits or at least printed circuit boards with, I remember it after coming back from a conference on breakthrough energy, meeting a lot of those people and being very impressed by a lot of amazing ideas, some of which I am going to take a wild guess are not bogus. So my thought was there's going to be some smart person in some part of the world who might just upload a CAD version of their next generation free energy device that you could 3D print in your living room and then go off the grid.
I've got a few ideas, Richard. I do. I'm what the funny thing is, a lot of these ideas are coming from starting to look very, very, very deep into that bloody ATIP list that got leaked out, eh? And, when I started looking at things like there's energy from or effects of quantum vacuum and high frequency gravitational waves. And I'm just going down the list right now. And when you start looking at these people individually, and I'm just like, holy crap. You've got so much bloody research that you can sit back and piece together things like Al Gore, and it's just like laid right out in front of you,
Yeah, you're right.
That makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah, and you know what else? And this will make you happy to hear this too. I'm a student at the University of Manitoba, and I go in and I take this list and I bring it to all my university professors. I literally go into the office and I close down their doors, and I've got people here that are so taken away by some of the things, the research materials and items that I've been popping up, and they sit back and they fall back in their chairs and it's just like, why the hell did I not think about that when I did my master's or when I did my PhD? Like, how the hell did you come up with this? How did you find this? How do you have time for this? And I'm sitting back and just like, listen, we need, I need to be able to contact, for instance, Dr. Kit Green, because I've got people in the University of Manitoba that would probably be willing to sell their firstborn just to hear this man talk. And it has made such a dent. I've made such a dent in the engineering department of the University of Manitoba, where I've even had to put in a notice to my dean telling me, listen, you look at the Nimitz encounter, you look at the, this particular ATIP list, and, tell me, where are the gas tanks in half these things that you see? Why is it that when I go onto the Government of Canada website in the Federal Archives and you see a notice for, UFOs, that nobody's ever mentioned where the gas tanks are, and yet we got to plow over an entire forest to get, oil in? and yet none of that's ever noticed. Most people that I talk to in the university don't even realize that that's right there under their noses. So when you sit back and you agitate this stuff up to the surface, I'm just like, wow. And everybody else is like, wow. And, you know.
Well, I think you're doing something that a lot of people need to understand, which is that if you want the conversation to change in this world, you got to change the conversation yourself. So like you're actually doing this, and that's what we need. We need people like you. I really want you to succeed on this, and it sounds like you've got great ideas to move forward on it. The pieces are coming into place in our world where like smart people like yourself might just be able to put something together. The problem that we're going to face is actually legal and bureaucratic intransigence. So, for example, one of the fears that I have is you come up with a really great free energy idea and your patent is denied. Even though you're Canadian, it might run up against a U.S. patent, and the U.S. and Canada have got integrated legal structure in many ways, and they may prevent you, I'm just theorizing here, from going forward with your invention because you're coming up against a black world classified patent that's never going to be allowed to see the light of day. So what we have to do is move as fast as possible and come up with these things and just upload it and get it out there to the world. I just love the idea of what you're doing. So Richard, I owe it to you. When I saw your presentations, I'm telling you, I wish I could just run up onto stage and just give you the biggest massive bear hug for like an hour and a half until your face is blue. Okay, I love your ideas. I love your work. I can't live another day without Richard Dolan.
Wow, Matt, that's strong. That's strong. That's strong. That's strong.
Not strong enough, I say.
Yeah. Matt, enjoy the rest of your night and your weekend, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hey, go back Lee Tappy, buddy.
Go back Lee Tappy. That's what I'm talking about.
Have a good one, Matt.
Richard, man, you got a fan club.
Wow, that was amazing.
I mean, well, but see, the thing is.
I literally think my face is red right now.
Do you remember I don't know. One of the first times that because I introduce you at nearly every conference that we do together.
Yeah.
But going all the way back, 4 or 5 years, when I would say to the audience that you are the guy that represents me. You're the face that represents us. And I would always go back and reference the citizens hearing 10-minute video.
Right.
And but I think that that's sort of in an organic way taken hold, that people do appreciate the way that you represent us because they know if they turn their friends or parents or coworkers or teachers onto you, that it's not going to be embarrassing. Right, that it's not, and I think that's where so many are coming from now.
It's a thank you. I really truly appreciate that from you, and but it comes down for me always to remember what is it that matters, and it's not me that matters. It is never me that matters. It's always the subject matter. I don't like to do. I mean, I have a fun time chatting with you about all kinds of interesting things that are off the main topic. But for me, it's always about coming to the main topic, which is, for me, is a UFO reality, the fact that there is something very, very critically important that's missing from our worldview, and to remind people of this. I firmly know that people around the world have a hunger that they do not know they have. Like there's a hunger for truth, and they don't know they have it until they encounter that truth. Like I've seen it 1,000 times, one-on-one with people. So for me, it's a matter of remembering what is important and what is not important. And what's not important is me. What is important is this subject. And so I never want to lose sight of that. I have fun, and I have loved the people that I've met in the 20 years or so that I've been a public person in this field. There's so many brilliant, fascinating people. And I'm someone who I think that I naturally like to enjoy life, and I like to laugh, and I'm married to a wonderful woman, and life is good. But I do want to represent this field as well as I can always. It's very important to me. It's very important. So thanks for reminding me of that.
Let's go back to the Richard Dolan fan club hotline. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, I'm a Richard Dolan fanboy. It's Paul from Sunny Grants Pass again.
Hi, Paul.
I want to thank you. Hi, I want to thank you for doing this. You've allowed me to contact two of the people that I've always wanted to talk with. Well, three, counting you. And I really, truly appreciate what you're doing with that. Richard, you are the sober-minded face to a pretty chaotic community a lot of times, in my mind. I've got three questions for you, but I did want to pass you that compliment. I know when I
thank you
listen to something that you say, that it has been carefully researched, it has been carefully thought about, and it represents the truth as we can know it now.
Okay, question number one, Paul.
Question number one, I'll just ask all three and take my answers off the air. Question number one, what is the most compelling case that you've researched? Question number two, how do you think that these people are getting here, or are they already here? And then finally, who are the up-and-coming voices in our community?
Three great questions, Paul. And let's start with the first one. Thank you so much, Paul, for the phone call.
Take care.
Question number one, the most compelling case, in your opinion?
Well, there's a few. It's funny, I was asked this question a number of years ago by George Norrie out of the blue. Richard, what's the best UFO case you know of? Caught me off guard, and at that time I said the 1976 case of a UFO over Tehran, which might still get my vote. Well, actually, maybe the Tic Tac UFO might have supplanted it. But the Iranian case of 76 is very strong because you've got that magical combination of incredible eyewitnesses, government records attesting to the reality of the case, and absolutely, utterly impossibilities that were being demonstrated by an object that just wasn't supposed to exist. So that's one, September 1976. But actually, I think that the Tic Tac UFO case of November of 2002 is 2004. What the? My brain just spazzed out there for a second. I'm thinking of the DC case. I think the Tic Tac case is right up there. You've got a number of amazing witnesses. You've got radar. You've got the description of an object that no one has been able to describe how this thing does what it does. So I would say those are my two favorite cases right now, and I think they're very strong. There's a large number of very good cases going back to the 1940s in the declassified literature, but I'll pass by those. How are they getting here? Look, I'm just taking a guess like anyone else here. I mean, I can't go into the physics other than to say they've found a way to defeat space and time as we understand it. We have scientists right now who are exploring methods of, let's say, bending space-time or manipulating space-time metrics, as they call it, to be able to, what it sounds like to me, is do an end run about the speed of light limitation. So if you're able to manipulate space and time within a particular bubble, you remain within that bubble. You're not breaking any of Newton's laws of physics, but you are warping space in front and extending it behind you. And I have a feeling that's how they're getting here.
Yeah, so do I.
How long have they been here? Probably a long time.
So do I.
What, Jimmy?
I agree with that. And I've had so many physicists on the show to discuss this. And the one point when we talk about, faster than light, travel and those concepts, which are there, and I understand it. But when we talk about warp drives, and it's not what most people don't grasp. They think Star Trek. right? Where the actual concept of a warp drive, there isn't time, there isn't speed, there isn't anything like that there. You're literally taking the gap out of wherever you are going to and where you are and removing it. So it's just like taking a step forward. That's it. That's all you're doing. You are literally
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, you're taking a step. So there is no time involved. There is no speed of light involved. You are just going from one point to another now. Not in a little bit, right? But instantaneously. And that eliminates all of the complications of food, sleep, aging, the biometrics, all of that stuff, the logistics, all of that is removed. You are literally
it's like manipulating the very fabric of reality in order to transport yourself. I mean, that's what it's kind of like. And it's a bit beyond our scientific understanding fully right now, but I think others have figured this one out, and they're using it, and the day will very likely come when we figure it out as well.
Now, and
I'll answer the last question, up and comers.
Yeah, the young voices today. Who are you listening to?
Well, there's one guy who he's really not that young, but he feels young every time I talk to him, and that's Michael Schratt. He's been around for a long time.
He's great.
But I feel like Michael is still, I think of him as a young voice that people need to know about. He's an absolutely amazing researcher who is only got integrity. He has absolute integrity in his work, and he is an aviation expert to boot. I always love listening to Michael, and I talk to him as much as I can. As far as young researchers, I've been looking, like who are the young people that really we want to latch on to. Well, there's a few of the young guys who who Grant Cameron dubbed the young guns. People like Danny Silva, I think, does really great work. Juliana Marinkovic, and a fellow by the name of James Iandoli, who I'm friendly with all of them, and I think they're interesting to me. I would like to see them do even more, but they're definitely worth following. I'm in touch with a young-ish man who's not published, other than having done the deep analysis of the Wilson document. It's a 31-page analysis that is absolutely incredible, and I would love to see him make a bigger imprint on the world of ufology. He wants to be anonymous right now, but in my opinion, he's absolutely brilliant, and I want him to do more work for this field because we could really use him.
Well, and we're going to take a break right here, but one of the things that I really appreciate is that you and I are no longer young, even though I feel when you look at like Stanton Friedman or other researchers that are out there that are older than you and I, we're actually the new generation of researchers.
Well, we're young compared to people in their 80s.
Right,
so, yeah.
Right. But when you and I are at conferences and you just look around and it is not blue hair. There is a generation out there, from 15 years to 25 to 30 year that is taking over. I mean, it is, and their knowledge of the subject is astounding. When you sit and talk to them, they really do the research and they take it very, very serious. And I feel that we're in good hands.
I think so. I think that there are a lot of smart young people who are gravitating to this field. I agree with that. I definitely want to encourage as much of a scientific orientation as possible among all young people who enter the field. It doesn't mean don't go into some woo from time to time. By all means, do it. But please, I really want to see people stay grounded scientifically. And definitely it helps to have a good historical understanding of the phenomenon itself. I couldn't stress that enough. And I think, I'm partial to my own perspective. I spent a lot of time learning the case history inside and out at the same time as knowing the history of our global politics, geopolitics, and the nature of secrecy itself. And we cannot lose sight of that. young people just honestly often haven't had enough time, frankly, to learn all of those elements of deception that exist in this world. It's one thing to say they're all liars, they're all deceivers, but it's really important to understand the details and the nuance of that and how these systems work. I mean, it's taken me for years, and I've dedicated myself. It's not easy. So I really believe that a sophisticated political, geopolitical, economic background, historical background, all of this is important, as well as understanding that there's a phenomenon here. It doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Can you take a minute and tell me how when you go to woo, right? And we all do it. How do you pull yourself back to center?
Yeah, it's simple. I always remind myself there's a distinction between what I know and what I think is interesting or what I think is possible. So it's like a body that has a skeleton, and the bones, the skeleton is the facts that you absolutely know. And on that, you build your theories. It cannot be otherwise. So you have to know what you know. And you've got to be really tough on it. You got to be rigorous, and you have to be prepared to say to yourself, wow, I thought I was right, but I was wrong. You have to do that. And there's nothing wrong ever with speculating on the basis of what you know is true. That's perfectly legit. But you've got to know when you're speculating, and don't confuse speculation with knowledge. It's a big mistake. So you've got to know when you're going out on a limb.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance there. But if you go back to, there has to be a balance. But if you go back to somebody like Galileo or Copernicus, right, where back then the stars were part of one layer, right? That's what they thought. Right. They thought it was just one layer that was going around. They didn't have it took them to go out and beyond that maybe there's something else going on here. And that's where the balance is. You've got to be, because that kind of speculation back then got you killed, right? So
it absolutely could.
Yeah. Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, this is, by the way, night 4 of our Open Lines Week with Richard Dolan. All of your phone calls are next after this short break, 747-228-2051. Stay right there. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, night 4 of our Open Lines Week. What a great week it's been. And tonight it is Richard Dolan wrapping up the week with us. All right. And this is the kind of fader night that I really enjoy. Normally we are doing open lines tonight. And Richard, it's still open lines. It's just a different flurry. And you get to take the pressure off of me. So thank you for that.
You're quite welcome, sir. And may I just commend you again on the quality of your callers. Seriously,
they're best.
They've been quite amazing.
Let's see what's up next. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. This is Malcolm Brenner from Port Charlotte, Florida, and Mr. Dolan. Good evening to you too. I've many times been amused, entertained, and informed by your program. So, hi.
Thank you for that, Malcolm.
Thank you, Malcolm.
What have you got for Richard?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to ask Richard which he thinks is going to have the greater impact on society, UFO disclosure or dolphin disclosure.
Or what disclosure?
Dolphins.
The second part?
Dolphin disclosure. Yeah.
Well, I guess my instinct would be to say UFO disclosure, because I don't know if I would understand what dolphin disclosure is.
Well, the fact that we've evolved on Earth with these creatures living in the ocean alongside us, which are functionally our equivalent, brain-wise and, in behavioral terms, but they don't have opposable thumbs, they don't use fire, they really don't need to manufacture anything. They've been, where they are for 12 million years. They're communications are probably largely emojis. But I think we can learn something from them because they are an animal that can penetrate the human mind telepathically. And the only other animal that I know that can do that is the creatures that, Whitley Strieber calls the visitors, the ones in those woo-woo things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe you have a point there. I wouldn't necessarily want to dispute you on this. I think dolphins and potentially whales as well are, obviously they're highly intelligent. We all know that. We all know that they have very sophisticated modes of communication. Often, I would even say mysterious to us modes of communication. The telepathy seems like a completely legit possibility. I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't say no to it. I think that what we call telepathy and psychic ability is, my wife and I, Tracy, we talk about this all the time. I think it's a perfectly natural capability of many life forms, including ourselves, certainly probably dolphins. It's probably a life skill. So yes, to all of that. As to whether that's a bigger change to human society than ET disclosure, I would probably argue against you there. But here's the thing. I've only recently been wondering to what extent are these ocean-based UFO sightings really about us? Are they potentially about the oceans, about the whales and dolphins? They're the interesting life forms in the sea, and there may be something there that these other craft and these other beings are connecting to, for all I know.
Thank you.
They were in their current large brain forms when we were tree shrews, and I'll leave you with that.
Yeah, absolutely, Malcolm. And there's another part to this, and thank you for the phone call, is the revelation that came out, I think it was about a year and a half ago, about octopus. And that they were such a foreign life form compared to everything else that was on this planet that they could have only been brought here by aliens, and that they were aliens. Well,
we've heard this about the mushroom, and I think we heard this about one of the Australian creatures, the wombat or the marmot, the kangaroo. Isn't there an Australian animal they said the same thing about?
Absolutely. And what would
the platypus?
Platypus. And that's it. I'm done. I will never do calamari again. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
This is Eric, the Awakening Apprentice.
Hey, Eric, how are you, man? Say hi to Richard.
Hello, Richard. I'm the tall guy with the glasses that always takes pictures of you at all the conferences. You probably would recognize me.
You're that guy. How are you?
I'm the guy. Good.
Okay, speak up into your Walmart phone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Sort of, but go ahead.
All right.
Better.
My first question, Richard, is I'm curious, since you've been married, and I'm assuming you and Tracy have a lot of dialogue about all these topics, in what ways has she possibly maybe reshaped or honed or maybe altered your discernment as you analyze these cases that are now coming through?
That's a great question, Eric. Well played.
It's a good question. I would say that, it's not like a black and white transition for me. So I really need to emphasize that in our crazy little world of UFO community, I seem to be known as the very straight-laced sort of person, but keeping in mind in the context of the wider community, I'm pretty out there as well. And I've certainly been very open to, I was studying remote viewing almost 20 years ago myself, and I'm very interested in that. But it's definitely true that being married to a woman who is not simply a very good remote viewer, which she is, but someone who's had her own experiences that don't, let's say potential ET experiences, it's what it seems like to us, that it's made me a bit more sensitive, I will say, to the situation of people who've had psychic experiences and who've had ET experiences as well. I wouldn't say that I was insensitive before exactly, but I think that I had a little work to do, and I think that my wife has been helping me with that. So it underlies the complexity of this subject that we're all interested in. That there's a nuts and bolts element to it, but there's an element to this subject that's not as easily amenable to mechanistic explanations, at least so far.
Thank you, Eric.
I'll add one thing.
Yes.
My amazing wife has influenced me in a lot of ways, but I have to honestly say I am who I am, and I've been who I am for a long, long time. So I change. I'm the one. I always say this to her. I say this to everyone. I'm in charge of my ideas. I decide, just like she decides hers, and we do influence each other, though. But ultimately, I'll take responsibility for my ideas and anything that I say. She
did make you cut your hair, though.
Yeah, she's actually raising her arms right in victory. Yeah, the hair needed to be trimmed. I'm going to say that as well.
Thank you so much, Eric. Enjoy your.
Oh, I got one more quick one, Jimmy. It's a good one.
Okay.
Please. Okay, real quick. So I'm a junior researcher, and this is just I'm going to make this super brief. In doing my research and investigation and so on and so forth, at times I thought that I had a beat on a story, or at least I believed in a certain aspect of the story. And then later on, as more information came along, I noticed I might have changed my opinion. Can you recall a case, a UFO-related case in your history where you initially looked at it, you did your thing, and maybe you put it on a shelf, and then later information came and you changed your mind or opinion on it? Can you recall a case like that?
Yes. Well, more than one time, probably more times than I can recall. That's the truth. Like both cases that come to me personally and also public cases that I've looked into and just made a different decision about. I mean, the point is, we can't get emotionally attached to an outcome. It's probably the most important thing I can say here, because it's never about us. It's always about what is true. It's really so simple. And once we come to that realization that we don't have to make everything true, or we don't have to make everything a genuine UFO, or we don't have to debunk everything either, because skeptics fall into the same trap. Then that's the true moment of liberation. Then it doesn't have to be about our ego. It doesn't have to be about, well, I already said this is a legit case, so I've got to stick with that now. Like, no, never do that. Never fall into that trap. We always have to be willing to change our mind, always. Otherwise, we're prisoners of our ideologies, and that's the worst thing to do in a complex subject like this.
Absolutely. Eric, enjoy your night, man, and your weekend. Oh, by the way, you like those new license plates?
Yeah, whoever's got those plates should get one of those covers over so they don't get stolen, though. Maybe for Christmas, somebody will buy that guy a gift or something like that.
That's going. That'll be in play tomorrow. Have a good weekend.
Okay. All right. Take care. Good night, guys.
I'll talk to you.
Is that a California thing? These new plates?
Yeah, I got Eric. Eric got Fade to Black California plates a couple of years ago and gave them to me. And
cool.
Yeah, and they just got slapped on a vehicle of mine, and they look so good. It happens to be a black vehicle, so that combined with the faded black plates, man, it's pretty cool. I posted pictures today with that, and it was Eric that procured the plates. How do you get fade to black custom plates? How that wasn't already taken? I don't know.
Well, you're just living large and in
man,
charge.
I'm telling you what. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hello?
You're live.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. Who's this?
My name is John Hudson. I'm calling from Silicon Valley. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, John. Say hi to Richard.
Hey, Richard. Real honor to talk to you, man. You're definitely one of my favorites. I don't want to gush all over you because you had enough of that tonight, but just wanted to say something. Both you and Jimmy are awesome, and I really appreciate the work you guys do. Okay, I'm gonna send something out on Twitter at the moment. It just went out to both of you, and on Fade to Black, and basically what it comes down to is I don't know, Jimmy, if you remember the guy you interviewed in January. I think his name was Chad, who did that documentary that was first Sir No Face and then became Two Face the Gray.
Chad, you're talking about Chad Kalick.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Right.
Well, what I found was if you take the image of Sir No Face and you superimpose it over one of the pilots from the Turkish video that, Richard, you talked about the other day, that the face geometry, where the eyes, nose, and sockets actually match up, is so close to identical that I think it almost implies that maybe that if they're both real, there's a cloning mechanism going on, or it could imply that one of them actually is copied off the other in some more nefarious way. So I don't really know what's going on, but I was just curious as to what you guys' opinion of it might be.
Yeah, that's a really, really, really great point, John. And I just see that you've posted a video. I'm going to watch this after the show tonight. And
yeah, no problem.
And thank you for that. Let me throw this over to Richard. Richard, we were just talking about compelling cases. And for me, there's so many great cases, but Rendlesham for me and Travis Walton are two of the cases that are right there for me. But
I would agree with those, yes.
Yeah, that Turkish UFO video, and I didn't get a chance to see your presentation on this. I know that you just did a show in the past week on this. That's some crazy footage, and I've spent exhaustive amount of hours looking that over the years, and now this new stabilized video has popped up. Yeah. So what's your opinion? I didn't watch, so hit me with the first hand here. What do you think about the Turkish UFO?
Well, actually, Tracy and I both did a fairly deep dive into that case, at least in a few days leading up to it. We really threw ourselves back into it. I knew about this case for a while, but I hadn't really looked at it carefully in a few years. That's the truth. So it was really enlightening for me, and I went in with a very open mind in the sense really wanting to look carefully at the skeptical arguments, and there's several against the fact that this is a UFO. One being, of course, famously, it's like reflections of a cruise ship off in the distance. I think that absolutely has to be discounted. I don't think that's a legitimate objection. And then another objection is that it's a kind of anomaly artifact of the lens that was being used by the photographer Yalcin Yalman. I would say that's a dim possibility in some cases, but I don't think I find that credible either. So I think that we're dealing with a legitimate object that was in the skies for those 3 years, 07, 08, 09. That's it. I don't think people have seen it since then. There are oddities about the case. The fact that it so frequently was recorded at the exact same perspective on a number of occasions. I mean, there are variations. There's dusk and daylight sightings where it's a string of lights.
Right.
If it's the same object, I think it is. And then there's at times where like you zoom in and you see this crystal clear object. I think it's a real thing. And the question is, who does it belong to? And there's also, of course, there's this analysis that's been done of the center of the craft, which it almost seems insane to say this, but when you run filters over the image, and this is not changing the image, it's just filtering it in various ways, you do get what looks like silhouettes of a couple of alien beings. They don't look human. I mean, I don't know what to make of that. But the fact is, that's what it looks like. So, and then there's, Roger Lear. I mean, sometimes you can make a little more out of this than is warranted. I mean, Roger Lear was a very intelligent man. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. He was a good researcher, did a lot with alien implants and more. He did the Varginha case a bit, and he's traveled. So he went to Turkey in 08 and looked through the telescope. And I remember talking personally with Roger about it. He was deeply impressed by what he saw. And, he's quite adamant this was a genuine craft that he and other people were seeing. So I accept it. I think it's a strong case.
The
I just
first
don't know
time,
what it is.
10 years ago, or when the first set of videos had surfaced, and hours long, right? And I'm watching, and I freeze framed and blew up when it was pretty stable for a second. And I see what I think is an alien gray in that window. I swear, Richard, I'm not kidding. I almost had a heart attack. I was like, "What is that?" And I still don't know what.
It's true. Like it doesn't take a leap of imagination to see. That's actually the case. Like if you look carefully, as you did, it's not impossible to see why people conclude that.
It was like dun dun dun.
Right. It's amazing, actually.
Absolutely. And John, thank you for the phone call, man. And I didn't. I'm not sure if Richard is familiar with Chad Kalick. Chad Kalick.
I'm not.
He was. He had a show for 7, 8, 9 years. Paranormal. What was the name of Chad's show, John?
I honestly, I don't remember. I know documentaries were Two-Face the Gray and Sir No Face.
Yeah,
but I don't remember the show he was on.
Hold on for a second. And Chad's probably listening right now. And I am going to American Ghost Hunter. Chad. American Ghost Hunter.
There you go.
And great paranormal researcher. But anyway, he was not a UFO guy. And he caught an anomaly doing some research over in Australia on this island, and caught something looking around the corner with his researchers. They went back and they looked at it, and they always thought it was an apparition, full-bodied apparition. And looking at it and filtering it, like you were just saying, it's a bleeping gray. And so,
really?
So he released a second documentary. I had him on Coast to Coast and here on Fade to Black a couple of times about this. And it's a very, very, it's a very disturbing moment. That's all I can say. Mm-hmm. So I'll send this over. I'm going to look at what you've got here. Richard, if you go to Twitter, John has got this posted up in Twitter on the Twitter feed, and you're copied on it, Richard. You're tagged. And
it's just a quick 15-second thing where I just show the fade in and out.
Thank you so much, John, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Guys. Have a good weekend.
Go back, Lee Tepe.
Go back, Lee Tepe.
Right on. And it's so great to. I don't know if John's ever called into the show before. He's a big Fadernaut and is always in the sandbox and hanging out. But I think that's the first time I've ever heard his voice. Thank you for that, John.
It's an interesting thing that he brings up, and doesn't it make you think, like, not that the Greys are ghosts or spiritual beings necessarily, but that once again, maybe it's an effect of being able to manipulate space and time in some way that where we haven't mastered, but they have. And you get this kind of in and out of our reality as a result of that.
I know. What do we, what do we do with that?
Lots of cases.
I know. Yeah. What do we do? I try to listen to everybody because I've got too many strange stories, and I hope that people listen to me and take me serious when I talk about some of the stuff that I have witnessed. And it's really tough. And when somebody else comes to me with something fantastical where it's interdimensional or it's possibly this, but this is what happened, I can't sit there and dismiss it, Richard. I can't. No matter what, I have to listen because I'm asking for the same thing from everybody else.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough.
Absolutely.
And the one thing about this community that is beautiful about this community is that you can go to a conference or you can call into a show like this and share your experience without the ridicule. And that's the most important part about this community that we hold true and dear. Now, How much of
one
it
of the
is-
things that you are helping to do is to change that culture and to make it an accepting place. So you're doing really good work in that regard.
Richard, I'm up against a break here, and you know what I'm going to ask next. And I know that Tracy's looking at you. Tracy, can I have Richard for another 20 minutes?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. I think I'm running a fever. That's the God's honest truth. I think that in the last hour, my head, I don't know what happened here. I think it's just talking to you.
You think it is? Okay.
Keep in mind, I'm 3 hours ahead of you.
Okay. Well, what do you want to do?
I want to wish you a very good night and tell you that you're my favorite radio host of all time.
Richard.
Other than myself.
Here's to many more.
And it's you. That's pretty good to me.
Here's to many more years of conversation between the two of us. And really quick, I can't let you go without you having to answer this question, though. What's the deal with the new book?
Well, I'm working on it. The new book is I am dedicated to doing UFO writing, UFO research. New books will come out when they come out, and they will. And when they come out, I'm going to make sure that you are among the first to know.
Thank you so much, Richard. Give my best to Tracy. I know she's right there. Enjoy the rest of your night and your weekend.
Thank you, sir.
What a great conversation tonight.
My pleasure.
I had a lot of fun.
Same here.
Richard Bleepin Dolan. Thank you so much, Richard. This is Fade to Black. That was. We're not over yet. Night number 4 of our open lines. Now, everybody that is on hold, I'll keep you right there, and we'll keep open lines running right after this short break. Stay right there. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you, Richard. Richard's website is right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Click on it. You can follow Richard on Twitter at Rich Dolan. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. So now we're going to switch it to Fader Night. Now we're just going to go open line 747-228-2051. So funny. There was like 8 people on hold waiting to speak to Richard. They're all gone. Except for one, and it's you. Hi, you're live. Who's calling?
Hey, Brother James. It's Libertas. How are you?
Hey, Libertas. What are you doing, brother? It's been a while.
It's been a little while. How you been?
I'm doing good, man. Sorry you missed Richard.
Oh, that's okay. Listen, you can choose to share this with him or not, but I wanted to clear something up, and you've actually, in the Faders, have been on this path with me. Remember a number of years ago we talked about the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951?
Right.
And then probably about a year ago, you said you got a lot of calls on it. I shared the patent security category review list with you.
I still have it. Yep.
Well, there you go. The reason I called, and it's unfortunate Rich is gone, but it's no big deal, is when you talk to the student from Canada about patent laws, probably similar between the United States and Canada. Mm-hmm. Well, my new discovery is that it's NATO that does this throughout the world. So, Jimmy, I sent you an email and it says patent.
I have it here.
Subject line.
Yep.
So let me tell you what that is, and the further discovery. All the time I've spent researching all this stuff over the years, and then all of a sudden I hit on this one website where the whole enchilada is there. And I'm not even sure who manages this website, but as far as the data goes, it's really attributable to 2 people. One is Michael Bripnitsky, and he's an attorney, a writer, and a researcher. And the other gentleman, and they do some good work over the Federation of American Scientists, is Stephen Aftergood.
Okay.
And Aftergood should be ringing a bell with you because he is the one that originally got the letter from the DIA, which contained a letter written to Senator John McCain with the reason, the purpose of ATIP, and along with it were the 38 documents that the $22 million was attributed to part of the 38 documents. Well, the DIA screwed up, and I can send you this if you want. I don't know. I assumed you saw it. But the DIA screwed up when they responded to the FOIA request because they attached the entire list of 38 studies when I believe 2 of them are still classified. But anyways, Jimmy, on to back to the patent thing. In 1953, the United States started doing individual patent agreements with individual countries, starting in 53 with the UK and Turkey and Japan and Norway. And then they got smart. They said this is a lot of work doing these with individual countries. And so in 1960, they did one with all the other NATO countries. Now, they do it under the category of defense-related patents. But if you go back to that category review list that you have, 50% of the stuff on the list could be used in the civilian application.
Yeah, it's commercial. Yeah, it's commercial. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's really cool on that website I just gave you, too, is that Stephen Aftergood maintains the data of how many national security letters have been issued. And over the last 5 years, it averages about 5,700 a year. But another cool document you'll see, Jimmy, is you'll see the template for the national security letter. So the website I just sent you contains the whole enchilada. All these years I've been digging and researching. Somebody had a very similar interest because it is all in one spot. So I would take a look at it. You might want to share it with Rich. I don't like sending Rich emails anymore because he uses Google, and I avoid them like the plague. But take a look at it, Jimmy. Some interesting stuff. And I think this is a model that would be similar to suppressing ufology data. Just use the NATO countries and write a document and get them to agree with it. So take a look at that. What I sent you, the website is fine, and you'll find some very, very interesting stuff on there, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking through it now, and I'll spend some time on it over the weekend, Libertas. Thank you so much.
If you're on the main page, Jimmy, just scroll down really quick while you're on the phone with me and look at the years. See where it says the countries and the years.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. Yes.
That'll walk you right through it. And like I said, you will find a template for a national security letter there that they issue to the patent applicants. And just if you can keep me for another second, I hear some very intelligent people on various shows, yours and other ones, talking about how they're working on 0 point or they're working on anti-gravity and they have investors. Jimmy, they don't know about this stuff, man. They got to be smart people if they're working on anti-gravity, and they're never going to get a patent for it. So I don't understand. They don't do their homework or something, man.
Well, and that's always it's been my opinion. I mean, we had Billy Carson on Monday and we talked about this very subject, and the way around it is don't apply for a patent.
Bingo. But then who's going to fund you, Jimmy? You know what I mean?
Well, trust me, that part. But anyway, don't apply for a patent. Throw that stuff out there in public. And that's the best. That's better than a patent when you're in these fringe areas. So there you go. Enjoy your weekend, Libertas, and thank you for the phone call and thank you for the tip.
Yeah, have some good reading. Share that with Dolan, man. Let Google have a copy. I'll see you, bud.
I'll talk to you.
All right, bye now.
Have a good night. And Libertas, man, I haven't talked to him in a while. I've got the website open here before I go and share this with everybody. I am going to take a look at it first, but it looks pretty interesting. It's exactly what he says it is, though. It is patent secrecy and invention secrecy, covering the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951. And with that, let's go back to the phones And I'm going to go here next. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, this is Steve from Las Vegas.
Hi, Steve. How are you, man?
And good. I just got in, but I don't. 2 quick questions, if I may. I'm not sure if you covered it, but Sunday night show of Coast to Coast with George Knapp, with Jacobs and Hastings stating that they're possible experiencers now. Did you hear that show Sunday night?
No, I didn't. Who was experiencers now?
Hastings, and the one that wrote the book, Bob Hastings, the book about the nukes, and Jacobs.
Right.
Yeah, they were expressing that there were the possible experiences that they've had contact.
Interesting. Robert Hastings is an experiencer now.
Yes, I was on Coast to Coast with George Knapp Sunday night. So I just wondering if you heard about anything about that.
No, I haven't. Need to get Robert back on the show. It's been many years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Second question. I've been following the Black Vote a lot, and I was wondering why. What I'm seeing here on some of the articles I read, that TTSA is ignoring John Greenwald without any communication. They don't want to talk to him. I'm trying to think, what's the reason? They wrote an article unidentified on the website regarding the last time you had John Greenwald on the show, and how you were suspecting Greenwald was asking questions from the documents about TTSI. Well, they wrote an article stating that that your show and John Greenwald were criticizing, not knowing facts yet. But why are they ignoring John Greenwald, not letting him, them get together and speak?
I don't know. I didn't know TTSA wrote an article and posted it on their website.
Yeah, I have it. It was. They wrote it on. It's called Unidentified. Yeah, and the author wrote an article regarding when John Greenwald was on the show. But I wasn't going to post any of that because I keep up with the news.
Oh, you're saying it's some other website called Unidentified. It's not TTSA.
No, I think they're associated with TTSA.
Yeah.
So, but regardless, they have some kind of thing with John Greenwald that they do not want him around or asking questions or ignoring his communication. I can't understand that. I mean, is he a threat because he gets facts, that he gets documents? I mean, that he could get the truth and they can't lie? I mean, I would really like to know what's...
Yeah, I think that may be a piece of it, and I think that there's something to that, Stephen, but there's another part about I believe, and this is how I feel, and through my own experience too as well, in interfacing with Tom and TTSA and everybody at the company, is that there are some very, very difficult questions that are out there that it is better for them, they feel, to not answer them and to run from it. And that there isn't another answer, and so by dealing with other people out there to get their message out, to do interviews or question and answers or articles or things, is they are controlling that. They're in control. So, but going out there and dealing with these questions directly and having to answer some very difficult things is something that they feel that they don't feel that they have to do it, and by not doing it, they're not put in an uncomfortable position. And look, when you're dealing with investors, you're dealing with selling stock and all of that, which I understand. You want to present yourself in the best light possible. And that's their choice. And if that's how they want to deal with it, that's it. I know that there's enough people out there that have heard John or myself or other people. We're not the only ones that have been asking questions, and those questions aren't answered, and people are uncomfortable with that. And that's it. That's it. I don't have anything direct other than the last time that I spoke to Tom, which was a few months ago now. The months are creeping by. It was a few months ago. It was in the middle. Unidentified was still airing on History Channel. And Tom and I talked. It was in the middle of the day. And he said that he would come on Fade to Black. He didn't have a problem with that, but only to promote Unidentified. That he didn't, and I'm just telling you direct what he said, that he would not address any concerns or questions from the community, and he didn't want to talk about any of that. So there you go. There, I think that answers your question.
Right. But the truth. It's just nothing, questioning what's going on and looking for the truth is all right. And they should appreciate that. And do we have a right to question and just not take everything said at face value? I just don't think it's fair. I think Mr. Greenwald and you have been fair, and I don't think why they're ignoring him and not communicating with him. And will not set the record straight, and he's a threat to them for some reason.
And it shouldn't be that way. My position. I have to clear my throat. Hold on. Sorry about that. Is my position? It has not changed. My position is the same now as it has been over the last couple of years. Number one, I appreciate the money that TTSA is spending on marketing. I appreciate them pushing out the press releases, getting stuff onto Fox and CNN and the marketing that is involved there. I appreciate all of that. They've gotten the UFO subject out there front and center. Fully dig it. The part that I'm uncomfortable with and will hopefully change is that it takes time to trust the man. As long as I'm dealing with the CIA or Pentagon or counterintelligence agents and people with security clearances and direct ties and oaths back to the Pentagon, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and everything else, that before I go in fully vested and trust that, time has to take place, and I need to know that they're doing this in our best interest, and that's it. I've never hid that, right? And that's where I'm at. So I hope that answers your question, Stephen, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. And that's it. My position has not changed. It's not. I've had my list of questions, and that's it. That's it. And it's not going to change. And thank you for that, Stephen. And I don't know who this website is or who you're referring to, so I haven't read that. But I don't deal with negativity. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
This is Joe from Florida.
Hey, man, how are you?
Very good, Jimmy. I guess to follow up on the last caller, I was waiting on hold, and he kind of touched on what I was looking to talk about. But when you were talking to Dolan, I was actually thinking to myself, because we got this spectrum now with TTSA where you have the dark journalist all the way over on the one side, and then you got George Knapp all the way on the far other side, and then you got guys kind of more in the middle but skeptical like yourself, and then guys kind of in the middle but not skeptical like Richard. It is a little bit confusing. You got to admit. Richard confuses me, honestly, on this issue, especially given what he said tonight, unless I misunderstood him. First of all, he said that he believes that TTSA is slowing down, and maybe you can explain that to me better, because I'm not getting that feeling at all. But I mean, maybe a temporary slowdown, but I don't get the sense that long term we're looking at a slowdown. I mean, the Navy, no matter how you look at this, the Navy is behind this, because we keep getting new Navy personnel coming out and talking openly. So the Navy has the ability to shut this down anytime they want, and they're not doing that. So, and the TTSA story is so tied in with the Navy that if the Navy is not shutting these the personnel down, then I don't see anything that's really slowing TTSA down in a significant way, given that the Tic Tac and the 3 Navy incidents are really the biggest fuel to the TTSA fire. I'm with you, if not more, in the dark journalist camp. I mean, to me, it's clearly an operation, but at the same time, I don't mind it. Like, especially because to me, especially Elizondo and these guys, they don't seem to be hiding it that much. Like, to me, it looks like an operation, but yet they're not going out of their way to hide the fact that it's an operation. And I'm sure that there's some reason for it. I don't know if I put my finger completely on why that is, why it feels like it's an op, but yet they're not really trying to keep it all that secret that they're an op. But that was just my feeling. And,
but you're right, though, Joe, which goes back to my point for everybody, is that before we go out and embrace something like TTSA, because of who they're staffed with, you can't go all in. And asking questions and tiptoeing with that type of organization and giving it time is the only way to know if it's honest. And the reason why I go that direction is, and I've said this to Richard, right? And I've said it on the air. That if Fade to Black, or if Richard Dolan Press, or if KGRA, or if iHeartRadio, right, or CNN, I don't care. You pick the media company, was staffed with CIA and counterintelligence officials with security oaths and the Defense Intelligence Agency and the Pentagon. Your company is staffed with that. If I had that here at Fade to Black, would you trust one word that was coming out of my mouth? You wouldn't. And you and everybody else would say that I'm some CIA project. If Richard Dolan's books were being published by a staff of CIA and counterintelligence officials, everybody in ufology or in general would be looking at Richard or iHeartRadio or anybody or TTSA and say, hey, wait a minute here. Your staff is 100% spook. I 100%.
I totally agree with you.
That's
on that.
That's it. If Fade to Black was 100% spook, I cannot imagine the criticism and what I would have to deal with every day. And that is what DeLong is dealing with. And that's it.
Can I just say? Can I say one other thing?
Sure.
To that point, and this is what confuses me about. And I really like Dolan. I follow him over the past year or two pretty religiously. I think he's great. I think anybody in this field that you're in that's batting 500 is doing a great job, because the whole thing is so tricky and there's so many different angles.
It's a minefield, man. It's a minefield.
It really is. But here's what I don't understand about Dolan's position, just specifically on this issue. All right, DeLong was on record before the October 2017 coming out party. Okay, DeLong was on the record about his meetings inside the 5 floors below, whatever, the Pentagon, wherever he was. But all the leaks and the teases that he did, that you're just as aware of as I am, that he was in super secret sealed rooms in government locations, military locations. Now, did DeLong in that time frame, the summer before October 2017, give you the impression that Luis Elizondo was the highest ranking guy that he met with in those skiff rooms?
No. He never mentioned it or implied it.
Okay, so who got DeLong into those rooms? Elizondo or somebody higher than Elizondo?
Well, you're letting your imagination run with you. I think what you're and now look, the way that Tom, not only on this program with our interview and others, where he has implied going, to, underneath the Pentagon, or he's out at Area 51, he's underground, and he's meeting with, the top heads of the CIA and the Air Force and generals and security guards and secret room. No, that never happened. He doesn't have a security clearance to go and do that, and nobody would allow a civilian in there. So no, he doesn't have access to that. What I believe, this is me, and this is because of Stephen Justice. I think that he went out to the Mojave Desert and went out to Skunk Works, and they gave him a tour and took him into a boardroom there, which was probably, through a security situation, but with some armed guards. That's possible. But underneath the Pentagon or Area 51, no. And I don't think he would ever try to convince you or me or anybody else that was the case. I think he was out at Skunk Works in the Mojave Desert. That's it.
I distincly remember some multiple Instagram posts.
Sure. Okay, I get that. I'm just telling you what I think. I think he went out to Skunk Works in the Mojave Desert. That's where he was. Okay. Look, but it's just my opinion. Okay, but I think that's where he was, which is still really bleeping cool. And with that, Joe, you're the last call of the night. It's been a fabulous show, and thank you. Okay, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
And with that, what a week! You know what? I've got 1 minute left on this program, and I'm just going to let this guy in for 60 seconds. What's up, Scott?
Jimmy, what a great week on Fade to Black.
Thank you so much. It was pretty cool, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable. Jimmy, I want you to know I got a clearance from my wife to call you 3 times this week.
Yeah, well, you know what? She's really cool.
With 1,000 years of alien presence, what makes you think there will be disclosure now? And will I not believe, because it's not humanity is not ready, but just what makes you think and feel as though these alien presences is off the planet?
Well, see, but that's too long of an answer for me. But I hate to say this to people, but I don't need disclosure, and I think that where we are right now is about as close as we're going to get until something accidental happens. It's not going to be the government stepping up and saying, okay, we need to talk. That's not going to happen. That side of disclosure is not going to happen. It'll be something else. It'll be a document dump that's accidental. It'll be break into somebody's servers or some crazy craft flying over Los Angeles. But it's not going to be voluntarily from the government. And with that, I'm rolling credits. And thank you for the phone call, Scott. See, I snuck you in.
Thank you, Jimmy. Great week. Keep it rolling, baby. I love it.
I'll talk to you. Thank you, Scott. Great night tonight. Great week. I do want to thank Richard Dolan. I want to thank Billy Carson. I want to thank Travis Walton. And, of course, Whitley Strieber last night. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2019 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Everybody have a great, safe, fun weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Go Beckley Tepe.